Hello, everybody. This is the Honest Reviewer, the literal god of the commentary community, and today I'm going to be joined with a friend. Please introduce yourself.
Hey guys, Youngblood Fantasy 91 here, the Tiger God of the commentary community. How you all doing tonight?
And for today's video, we're doing a dramatic reading on someone known as Manic Expressions, who's the owner of a website called manicexpressions.com. If you want more information about him, well, TOG once did a video about him where he ranted about how we should like the AVGN movie on his video called Stop the Hate, and now he's doing another Stop the Hate, which is an article called Stop the Hate number 242. Yes, he really has that many of these. 5 classic movies I'll never watch.
Oh yes, I mean this is from the get-go. This is amazing because he makes the premise that all 5 of the movies that he has on this list are terrible, but he's never seen the movies. So how can he say the movies are any good or bad if all he's doing is relying on second-hand information from other places?
Which he clearly demonstrates when he talks about some of these movies.
Oh sure, I mean, but more on that later. But at the same time, it's just absolutely hilarious how he considers himself a film buff, but then he makes jumps to all these conclusions about these movies, which are quite frankly erroneous and make no sense.
Yep, so let's get started. Have you ever had someone say, "You've never seen insert supposedly great movie here? What's wrong with you?" Well, I can easily say, no, that's never happened to me. I have. When a movie is christened a classic by critics, the audience alike, it becomes mandatory viewing for film buffs. But what happens when you don't want to watch it? Your fellow movie nerds give you shit. Well, that never happened to me either. Maybe even accuse you of being closed-minded or having no taste.
It could be them joking around, though. I'm like, usually they say that to get your goat, not because they really mean it. If they really did mean it, yeah, that's pathetic, but I don't think they mean it 100% of the time.
And I also like how the end of this sentence of the paragraph, you argue about them thinking of you as closed-minded, but we'll see sooner down the list of these movies and your reasoning for not wanting to watch them that you kind of do sound like a closed-minded person.
Absolutely.
You have paragraph number 2.
Alrighty. There are classic films that I haven't seen because they don't appeal to me, like It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. I just never had any interest in seeing it, but I'm not opposed to it. Okay, no explanation. Other movies just take some time to get around to. Some of my all-time favorite movies, like 12 Angry Men, Treasure of the Sierra Madre, and The Thing, are movies I've only discovered in the last few years. Oh, he actually watched good movies. Okay, so what's stopping him from watching the rest of those? Especially the 5 listed here. Ugh.
Oh, we'll see why he doesn't want to watch them, and they're pretty ridiculous.
Great. Okay, take the 3rd paragraph, sir.
Then there are those movies that no matter how much shit I give for my fellow lovers of cinema, I will never watch. I won't even give them a chance. Well, that's pretty unfair of you. And I ain't talking about Twilight. Well, who the hell would consider Twilight a classic?
Trust me, I know plenty of people who say it's a classic.
Yeah, but who's ever going to say that 10 years down the road we're going to look at these movies with awe and attraction that study and use them to study films today? I mean, yeah, maybe how not to make a movie. Sure, but seriously, why is this even here?
Yeah, good point.
I'm talking about movies that offend me by their very premise. So despite the love of critics and audience everywhere, here are the 5 movies I shall avoid to my dying days. Wait, I thought it was the 5 classic movies. Now it's just the 5 movies he'll never watch.
Ugh, make up your mind. God damn it. Which one is it? Is it classic movies from like the 30s, 40s, and 50s, or is it just random movies that you picked out of a hat? Well, we'll see later on down the list that he kind of did pick these movies out of a hat. Number 5, Solo, or The 120 Days of Sodom. Of the 5 movies on this list, this is the movie that bothers me the least. The film is a condemnation of life under Mussolini and of the trappings of consumerism, and for that, the filmmakers are to be applauded. Okay, so far so good, so I don't see why he hates it. But wait, Let's see what he says later. What is less admirable are the graphic scenes of torture, rape, forced shit-eating, and other atrocities. I know the filmmakers were trying to say something, and they used extreme images to get their message across, but frankly, I just don't want to see it. Well, I guess someone has a weak stomach or a weak constitution or has an inability to understand that visuals, even if they are disgusting, kind of help reinforce the theme that you mentioned earlier. You've, like, literally describe the theme perfectly, so why do you have such issue with people trying to illustrate the theme even through disgusting means? I mean, sure, it can be disgusting, but it's effective. Anyway, let's finish this. If handled correctly, such violence doesn't bother me. Hell, I think Clockwork Orange is a masterpiece. But when a movie ventures into torture porn territory, I choose to stay away.
I gotta have a problem with that last sentence. Why would you call this torture porn? I mean, I would think that torture porn just meant showing blood and violence for the sake of blood and violence.
But this movie has a premise behind it. The original movie was written, actually, it was based on a book by the Marquis de Sade, and the Marquis de Sade wasn't what you'd call a mentally stable guy. He thought about torturing others and, feel good after torturing others. So this idea of sadism and this idea of pain is transferred into this movie. And again, these images are what makes it effective. So if you're going to be, I hate this movie for that reason, then you have a weak stomach. But then again, you like rape, seeing how you like A Clockwork Orange, and you also like people getting killed. So whatever, man, whatever.
This has been Information by Hobbs.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, number 4 is actually an out-of-place movie, if you think about some of the other entries that'll show up, called The Social Network. And let's just focus on this first sentence here, because that's all he has to say for this entire entry. I just don't care. I don't care that David Fincher is one of the best filmmakers that we have working today. I just don't care that this movie actually got Jesse Eisenberg an Oscar nomination. I don't care that the movie isn't really about Facebook. I don't mind movies about greed and corruption. I love Oliver Stone's Wall Street. But I have no interest in knowing anything about how Facebook was founded, nor do I care about the real Mark Zuckerberg. Everyone tells me that it's not about Facebook, it's about the world we live in today. I find that statement so depressing that it makes me want to cry.
What? Okay, first of all, Mark Zuckerberg is the 11th most rich person in the world, so he kind of does matter. Number 2, a lot of people use Facebook, so the fact that you don't care doesn't matter when you talk about a social network that a lot of people use on a daily basis. And 3, that's not a good reason to not watch the movie.
And don't you have to love it that this is so far twice in a row that he's just name-dropped someone else's movie that's a classic? I mean, first time it was Clockwork Orange, and now it's Wall Street. I mean, is he just trying to do this to reinforce us that he really does like movies?
I guess so. It's his last-ditch attempt to make his arguments sound legit when really they're not.
Even though all he had to say about this movie was that he just doesn't care, but also, why is this number 4 and Sodom number 5? I mean, if anything, Sodom sounds more heinous and offensive than a movie about Facebook, if anything.
Well, see, we're dealing with a guy who's just very inconsistent and doesn't know what he's saying half the time, so I'm really not surprised. But he also seems to have a sense of just, inflated ego, because he believes that him not caring is a more important viewpoint than a lot of other people who at least watched the movie first. I watched the movie, and I thought it was interesting because the characters seem relatable. But see, you won't know that because you never want to watch this, quote, classic movie, unquote, even though it's from 2010. Number 3, Birth of a Nation. Here we go. This movie came on Turner Classic Movies a decade or so ago, and my father encouraged me to watch it. You have to get past how repulsive it is, he said, and view it as a piece of history. No, I don't. Birth of a Nation is the first full-length feature film, that's why it's important, among other things, which is the beginning and end of what makes this horrible, racist trash memorable. Okay, so you're just going to ignore American history? Okay, that makes sense. Things may have been different in 1915 when the movie was originally released. Morals and beliefs may not have been as evolved. So, what, are you saying that people were simians in the 1900s? You are just as offensive as the movie is. But that's no excuse for portraying the KKK as heroes defending the South against sex-crazed, murdering slaves, and that's where he ends it.
Hobbs, I think it's time that you give us some more information.
Sure. Well, Birth of a Nation is a classic feature-length film by D.W. Griffith. It was based off a play that is about like Southern racism, and yes, it is about racism. What's wrong with American history and portraying it in a true fashion? It's like so yes, racism is a bad thing, but are we just going to ignore it and just remove it from the history books? In fact, the movie received a lot of like good and bad reviews, but see, D.W. Griffith's not a bad guy because later on he made a sequel called Tolerance. It's literally called, or Intolerance. It's literally called Intolerance. And it's about people who have been marginalized over many years, the Jews, a bunch of other groups. And that movie is about saving yourself from the oppression. So D.W. Griffith's not a bad guy, number one. And number two, I have a book here called Understanding Movies by Louis Giannetti. Now, they mention Birth of a Nation literally 6 or 7 times in the book. And it's not because they believe the racism is cool. It's because the movie has a lot of things about it that shows it's a modern movie, or at least it shows it's an avant-garde movie, mainly because there's lots of important editing things that the director used that's important in later films, sound, the usage of music, and many other things. So why are we looking at this film 90 years later and we're putting it in textbooks when you say that the only thing that's bad about it is racism? That doesn't make any sense at all.
This has been More Information by Hobbs.
I'm sorry for monopolizing the video, but thank you.
Okay, and number 2 is another odd choice because this movie came out around this year, and that is Zero Dark 30. So
What?
we're just going to use the word classic in its broadest definition. I know this movie was nominated and that it got a lot of good critical reception, but that doesn't automatically make it a classic. So again, why is it on this list?
You tell me. You tell me.
This movie was a darling of film critics last year, many of whom think it was a crying shame that the movie didn't win Oscar for Best Picture. Typical liberal Hollywood. But except the movie never should have been nominated, because it's not really a movie. Zero Dark 30 is a propaganda film, pure and simple. The filmmakers took notes from the CIA, allowing the government agency to shape the film. The movie is outrageously implying that waterboarding the suspect gave us the key information that led us to finding Bin Laden. It didn't at all. We got that tip through good old-fashioned legal interrogations. For that reason alone, I'll never watch this movie. If I want to be lied to about recent history, I'll watch the news.
How about I let you explain this one? Honest Reviews.
First of all, thank you for showering this entire part of the article with your political view shapes. And secondly, I'm sorry that the movie needed to take notes from the CIA in order to know what went down during the movie. Also, if you just took your time to, watch the movie, you would have noticed that it wasn't actually waterboarding that gave us the name of Bin Laden, not even in the movie. There was a scene later that the main characters actually tricked him in giving him the name. Hobbs, I have to believe that the only reason he's talking about all this shit is because he saw it on Wikipedia, because I checked on Wikipedia on this movie and there's a whole section that talks about the controversies and how people believe that the movie is supporting waterboarding.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is exactly what I mentioned earlier. I talked about how he's relying more on secondhand information rather than looking at the actual movie itself. So, you're right. I think he looked at the Wikipedia page and just was regurgitated what it said in there.
Because, God forbid, have a mind of your own.
Yeah, God forbid actually watching the dumb movie before making an opinion on it. Ugh. I don't even know, man. I don't know. It's ridiculous. Oh my god. Number 1. Gone with the Wind. This is going to be fun. And here it is, the big one. The one that people can't believe I've never seen and that I refuse to see. One of, if not the, most beloved American movie. How can I call myself a fan of film and not watch Gone with the Wind? Because you're not really a film fan? Well, first of all, I find the portrayal of slavery totally offensive and just a notch below the vile morals of Birth of a Nation. Again, if you're that offended by the fact that it happened in American history, then you are denying reality.
Hobbs, I think I'd find it a touch bit more offensive for a movie trying to pretend that these things in history didn't exist than actually, telling it like it is.
It seems to me that he only wants things sugar-coated, but That's not the.
Maybe it's this whole thing about him being a father and all that. Maybe he's like a soccer dad and all that.
Oh God, no! Please let it not be the case. But let's continue. Second off, I hate everything about the lead character of Scarlet. She's a petty, manipulative, cruel woman who somehow has become a feminist icon simply because she's a survivor. Lastly, the movie just looks boring as hell. The thought of sitting through 4 hours of southern melodrama makes my eyes droop. People talk about Gone with the Wind as an epic, something you experience. We're to be absorbed into the in the spectacle of it all. That's the same defense Michael Bay uses. Look at the pretty pictures. Sorry, no sale.
Yeah, let's compare Gone with the Wind cinematography with Michael Bay's. That will make your point stronger.
Even though, like, there are no random transformers or explosions in the movie. And there's actually good acting.
And there's no upskirt shots of women everywhere on motorcycles.
No, I totally remember that from Gone with the Wind. Scarlett did that once in, like, the middle of the movie. But wait, he wouldn't want to sit through that because it's 4 hours long and he has no patience.
And you wonder why we are questioning you being a film buff? It's because of statements like these. I mean, if you're really going to complain about movies just being too long and boring, I mean, I guess that means movies like Titanic and Planet of the Apes are movies that you never want to watch, considering those are almost 3 hours long.
And not to mention, A Clockwork Orange is pretty long, too, but you managed to sit through that just fine, no problem. And Wall Street's long, too. I think it's around 2.5 to 3 hours. And you know what? I don't understand why you're being inconsistent and why you're making up fictional reasons to like the movie. If you're going to be that bored of the movie, and if you're going to be that offended about slavery in the movie, then I don't know what you expect out of a movie. You probably want to watch, like, freaking baby movies for all I know.
You know, it wouldn't surprise me if he made a sequel to this list and he would put such movies like Django Unchained or Schindler's List to be in the sequel list.
Gee, I wonder why.
Yes, because, oh my god, the Holocaust. How dare someone put that in a movie?
That's so offensive.
How dare someone have Jamie Foxx pretending to be a slave driver?
He was in chains. It's very offensive. My virgin eyes are bleeding. Oh no. Oh, the humanity.
Sorry, TOG was showing me something.
It's cool.
I was just trying to point out that he talks about one of his favorite villains of all time is Amon Goth from Schindler's List, and he celebrates Schindler's List despite the fact of how much racism is within that movie.
But so you're saying he likes Schindler's List?
Yes, that's what I was. That's what I was trying to point out to you guys. And one of his favorite villains of all time is a man who spent his time just randomly killing innocent Jewish people for the sake of killing innocent Jewish people because he was bored and he found it to be a game.
Yeah. And thank you for calling this movie completely racist, even though, if I remember, this movie is also famous for having the first black person to win an Academy Award.
Oh no, that's so racist that a black person won something because of their excellent acting. Oh no, whatever shall we do?
Now, how is this a stop the hate, you may ask? Yeah, I've been wondering that throughout this entire article. This isn't about trashing movies or people who love them. Yeah, that actually seems like it is when I look through it again. If you like these movies, that's fine. More power to you. However, I get tired of people telling me that I have to watch these movies. When a movie is deemed a classic, it just assumes that we'll watch it and adore it as much as the critics do. But we all have different tastes. So wait, looking at the sentence again, are you trying to say that the movies are actually trying to force you to watch them? What, are at your door right now with a baseball bat trying to break your legs in case you don't look at them?
The movies and the critics are all being bullies, and he can't escape the bullying, so he has to rebel against the terrible bullying of classic movies. Oh wait, we don't know if they're classic because he put frickin' Zero Dark 30 in the list, so what is classic to him?
Oh yeah, and I love this. One man's Ghostbusters and another man's Citizen Kane, and I have to stop there because really, I mean, I get what he's trying to say in here, but really, comparing Ghostbusters with Citizen Kane, two completely different movies.
Yeah, like, that's like trying to compare Star Wars with The Room. You can't do that. You can't say that they're on the same tier, or people would consider The Room to be as awesome as Star Wars.
Maybe if he just used two completely different movies than the ones he gave here. I mean, seriously, Schindler's List is a movie that's even being studied in film schools, even to today. Ghostbusters, what did that have to offer us? It gave us a animated show, a meh sequel, and a third sequel that's been in development hell for decades.
So I guess in this case, they represent two distinct extremes, and in this case, the comparison fell short. I'm sorry.
So don't be bullied into watching something just because everyone else is telling you you must. You should always be open to new things, which is what you're not into. But if the movie offends you by its very existence, why bother sitting through it? And this completely contradicted what you just said earlier. Life is too short. Watch what you want, and don't let the movie police choose your flicks for you. The movie police? You're taking this really seriously. I mean, are the movies really at your door? Have they been picking on you for so long? Have they brought out guns by now?
And why is it that he's selectively offended at certain movies? I don't understand. He can sit through Citizen Kane and Schindler's List, but he can't sit through Gone with the Wind or Birth of a Nation because of slavery. Even though he sat through Rape before.
Yes, and again, there's the inconsistencies within this whole list. I mean, 4 out of the 5 movies, he talks about how it has offensive materials in them, but with The Social Network, he doesn't talk about it being offensive in the slightest or anything, and yet it's number 4. Though, looking back, I really shouldn't be that surprised, considering one time he said that The Dark Knight Rises was better than The Avengers only because The Avengers is going to have a sequel, and that was his only reason for saying that.
Yeah, he just doesn't care, which I think is the reason behind this entire blog, is he doesn't care to sit through the movies, he doesn't care to go over the facts, and he doesn't care to erase his inconsistencies. He just doesn't care.
Yes. I mean, why else would he have talked about the racial themes and all the other controversies within some of these movies if he hasn't even watched them, unless he looked at it on Wikipedia?
Like, all of it is secondhand information. He's just regurgitating someone else's opinion or facts that he's trying to mold into his weird, wrong opinion or wrong interpretation.
And by the end, he's trying to tell people to be a little bit more open-minded. And yet here he is, telling them why he won't sit down with movies because of themes or premises. With movies that have elements that happen in the 1800s are too offensive for him.
Or they're too long and he can't sit through them because he's so impatient. He talk about open-mindedness. Impatience is like the complete antithesis of open-mindedness.
I guess we can look forward to the Lord of the Rings movies being on the second list, along with Django.
Along with the new King Kong movie that Peter Jackson directed.
Along with Inglourious Basterds also, unless, maybe not, because he likes Schindler's List also, so he might give Inglourious Basterds a pass.
But
because, movies with Nazis in them is okay compared with movies with slavery in them, apparently.
Slavery is worse than Nazism. That's the long and short of what I got out of this entire thing.
Anyway, this is The Honest Reviewer, your literal god of the commentary community.
And this is Youngblood Fantasy 91. Not really a big fan of movies, but at least I know enough and sit through the damn movies before jumping to conclusions about them.
And again, Honest Reviewer, the big fan of all movies. Even if they suck, I will watch them anyways because I hate myself.
At least you'll give them a chance and be open-minded.
Yes, and with that, we are going to end it now.
See you on the brighter later, ladies and gentlemen.
Arrivederci.